Blow the whistle.
Back in the building. You know what it is.
Back one more time.
BTW.
Get out the way.
Oh man, off season. Hey man, this week 3.
Week 3
of the off season, man.
3 of 5.
3 of 5.
It's week 3. Got another blazer coming through.
Hey man, our first 2 episodes, like they were some bangers, man. Some great responses. You know, great dialogue.
Got people calling me, asking me questions, and making comments.
Man, who you telling? I don't even need to pull mine up right now.
I'm telling you. I think this relationship piece is really capturing some people.
Anytime you talk about relationships, man, it's an ongoing dialogue. You know, Mars, Venus, you know, all that, men versus women, the way they think, the way we think.
Yeah.
You know, trying to make it successful, trying to decrease this divorce rate. That's what we're trying to do.
It's at an all-time high.
All-time high. And it's not all our fault.
It's not. But we ain't gonna get into that because we want to keep y'all watching. we ain't gonna make nobody. We ain't gonna make a particular population mad.
Yeah. But y'all know who y'all are. But we're not even gonna.
But part of that, man, is in the relationship piece and in the divorce piece is from a fatherhood standpoint.
Absolutely.
From a young man, from an adolescent to a young man to an adult.
Mm-hmm.
There's some correlation why that communication is so down and declining, why the divorce rate is high.
Right.
And our guest,
man,
our trailblazer is gonna really broaden our horizons and share some knowledge. And Dr. Shears is coming on, and I'm gonna let him introduce you guys. And I just know he's gonna drop jewels. We've been doing it. This is what BTW do.
We drop jewels every week. We blowing whistles every week. Gems. That's what we do. So this week's gonna be no different. Like Dee said, Dr. Jeffrey Shears, here at Charlotte, social work. Our professor has written some articles, done a lot of research when we're talking about fatherhood, the roles. And we talked about our last episode, we're talking about those blurred lines and gender roles.
Yeah.
Trying to understand those things and broaden our communication in regards to making sure that the young boys that we're bringing up in the adolescence don't fall to the pitfalls that we kind of experience.
Listen, we may not be here on earth to see the great change, but we can be a part of it.
We can spark the change, like Tupac said.
You can plant the seed and spark the change for the young ones, So, I'm ready.
Y'all see what it is. Dope Black Father.
Let's bring
Dope Black Father's in the building. We bring another one on.
What up, Bo? Dino?
Yeah. Man, your young man is a young man now. He's a man now.
Yeah, he's a man.
Wow.
Grown up. Stop telling everybody. Come
on. Everybody know. They see him. It ain't all for stress. It ain't all about stress right here.
Somebody say that's nice. They like that.
Yeah. Hey, that's salt and pepper, man. Hey,
Dr. Shears doesn't get him. I might have played with y'all today, man.
Let's bring Dr. Shears on up in here, you guys, and we're going to get this thing cracking. Talking about fatherhood, in the 21st century, right? Dr.
Hello, how y'all doing?
Doc, how you doing?
Man, I'm doing great. Really blessed to be on the call tonight, man. I appreciate it. Y'all hitting some pretty in-depth topics at the end of the year.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We're trying to. I appreciate you coming on. You took the first thank you. We like to have the first one, but we want to thank you for taking the time. You're a busy man with a schedule and a man with purpose. So for you to just take this, a little bit of time, you're here to drop some jewels and share some knowledge with me and my co-hosts and the audiences. We greatly appreciate it from Blow the Whistle. So we appreciate you being here.
Oh, no doubt, man. I'm loving that Dope Black Father shirt, man. It's too many. The rap we get are not about not being dads and not being involved and whatnot. Hey, I like that shirt, man. We got to spread that message because too many young brothers falling by the wayside, not realizing how impactful their role as fathers are, not only in their families, but in our community. That's real.
And I definitely wore this shirt for you tonight, Dr. Shears. I was like, we talking about fatherhood. We're all dope black fathers on this panel tonight, and we're going to have a dope black conversation. Yes, absolutely. So definitely, we want to dive in. We want our viewers to kind of get a glimpse, just a little snapshot of everything that you have been going on for years and years. But just give us a little bit of background of, who you are and how you came to be what you are in this present day.
Okay, I appreciate it. So part of my personal story is really leads to why I study fathers. So and it kind of really all intertwined. So I'll be really quick about it. But as a graduate student at the University of Denver, I was involved in a research study. And so just to tell you how far fathering has come over the last 20 years. So I've been in the game for a while. Back when, studying fathers and understanding the impacts of fathers in the lives of children wasn't as sexy as it is now. So it was a large research study, just to kind of paint the basement floor here. Large research study, 3,001 families, federally funded study, 17 university research sites across the country to try to figure out what things impact early infant development. So part of this was the early Head Start study to see if early Head Start was impactful or not. So they randomly assigned pregnant mothers into early Head Start or not. They brought the moms in, they brought the children in the lab from the time the children were born. They asked mom a ton of questions about her parenting style, what was her relationship like with her parents, her vocabulary. They brought the child in every 3 months to really gauge their developmental stages and all this. And it was some of the most influential minds in the country in regards to academia, really trying to find out what impacts early infant development. And the sites started to talk to each other like, hey, every time mom comes into the lab with the child, this dude shows up. And people are like, yeah, we got guys showing up too. We don't ask them any questions. We don't ask them about their parenting style. We don't ask them about what they do with the child during the day. We don't ask them how often do they feed, change diapers, how often they play games with the child. This guy shows up and y'all know who it is. It was a dad. So it just tells you how far we've come in 20 years. We first started doing this work. We didn't even ask fathers about fathering. We asked moms what their dads do as fathers. So that right there just really sets the ground floor about how, here I am, I'm saying we are talking about leading researchers in the country trying to figure out what impacts early infant development, and no one thinks about, maybe we should ask fathers what they do with these kids.
Right.
So to head the 2 father studies in Colorado, which ended up being the Early Head Start Research Evaluation Project, which ended up being one of the largest studies of fathers, include fathers in largely minority communities. So that's kind of how I got into it, man. And so, from there, man, I really realized, so much about my own life. I think God has a perfect plan for all our lives. And this just kind of fell in my lap about this fathering thing, because really my early interest, which we could talk about too, was overrepresentation of African-American males in the juvenile justice system. That's what I always wanted to study and really understand. Right. Interestingly enough, I believe the 2 issues go hand in hand in our community, because we have the higher incidences of African-American men not residing with their children. We can really get into, what happens when a young child grows up in a household without a dad at some point.
We definitely gonna touch on that.
Definitely.
You ain't gotta worry about that. We definitely want to touch on that one. But just kind of get into the belly of it as you speak of some of that. In your professional, and if you want to share your personal opinion, what is the role of the man, the father, in relationship, and how how have you seen that change? Obviously, you're a little slightly older than we are, but how have you seen that just slightly? How have you seen have you seen that change over the years and generations, like the man and father role in a relationship?
Hey, great question. So, we first started doing this work, men. It's really what I call a traditional role and what we see as more contemporary roles. So some of the traditional roles, so I mean, everybody knows, and men have this responsibility too, where they feel like they had a responsibility of being a provider. Like, and that's what, everybody knows fathers are to provide. But fathers also talk about, we ask men, what does being a good father mean? Most men talk about being there. And then what does being there mean? Being there means being a provider. A lot of men talk about being a disciplinarian. A lot of men talk about being the child's playmate. A lot of men talk about making sure children follow rules and regulations. So I see that as the more kind of traditional roles that our grandfathers kind of grew up with, being a provider, work 60, 70 hours a week to buy the shoes, and, put food on the table, like just do the grinding thing, But there is a shift. There has been a shift, in the last probably 10 to 12 years where men are really talking about being a caretaker for their child, being much more involved, being more hands-on, even being in a relationship with mom or being emotional support to mom is also part of fathering. So we haven't left the more traditional roles of fathering, provider, the kind of traditional disciplinarian, things of that nature. But we have kind of, this paradigm has shifted a little bit. And I believe part of the reason we are still holding on to, which is fine, that traditional role, provider, disciplinarian, things of that nature, that's because what society, look, if you send a check to the other side of town to support your kid, ain't nobody mess with you. Everybody say you're a good dad, even though you might not see your kid. You might not spend any time with him. And that's the disconnect that I would really like for society to understand. It's not just me providing, but it's the time that I spend with my child that is super important. Because I tell men all the time, fathering ain't mothering. It's two different things. Fathers don't mother, mothers don't father, right? So children need both of those things to be successful.
Doc. We forgot to tell you the rules of engagement. When you drop a bomb or jewel like that, we got to blow this whistle so the people can hear it again, because we just can't take it for granted. What you just said.
The people in the back didn't hear that part. That last part right there.
Yeah. People,
say it again.
People in the back pew didn't hear that. People in the back pew didn't hear. Okay. All right. So, so fathering is not mothering. All right. So, and that's why I tell men, like, father the way you naturally feel like fathering. Like, prime example, this is supported by research. Mothers, particularly young children, and let's just take, I would use an example because people can really visualize it. Mothers are into more cognitive play, patty cake, singing songs, things of that nature, where fathers into much more rough and tumble play. Okay. And so the example I always use, because people can easily visualize it, when you got a 2-year-old or toddler sitting on the floor and a dad comes in the room, what's the first thing a dad does with his child? Starts to toss him in there, rough and tumble play. Okay. Yeah. That child's activity level is flat. Dad comes in the room, activity level suddenly spikes, right? Dad plays with the child 5, 6, 7 minutes to set the child back down. Dad goes on about his business. That child just had a flat, suddenly spike, and then the activity level suddenly drops, okay? Rarely do children experience that with their mothers, okay? Now, when children experience that with their fathers, that strongly affects self-regulation, your ability to control your emotions in young children. Self-regulation is highly correlated with school readiness, and we wonder why so many African-American boys have trouble in school up until the 3rd and 4th grade, because a lot of them don't have a lot of self-regulation, the ability to control their emotions. Why don't they have that? Because there are not a lot of men in the house who they have interaction with when they were infants.
And that's a very important,
children. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And that's a very important time period, that early childhood development, that age, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's prime time for that cognitive and in the developmental process or phase for a child. So when that father isn't there, you're missing a piece of this. And Doc, you're spot on with that.
Yeah, I mean they're at a that's a very impressionable stage.
Yeah,
And like Doc said, if you don't have that model, that figure, you're gonna lose out in some of your development.
Yeah.
And that's what he's speaking of in the early childhood stages, where they're just not cognitively, where they could be because of the lack of, that presence of a father or male figure. Wow.
So Doc, answer this question for me. Why do you think that there's a huge disparity in regards to father-son connection versus mother and son? You briefly spoke of the differences in a sense, but why do you think that there's a huge disconnect as far as how fathers interact from an emotional level versus mothers?
Well, you talk about the difference between the way mothers and fathers raise their children.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think part of it just because women are nurturing, and I have all girls, so I still father. It's like when they were little and they would fall, I'm like, get up, you all right, and they need to hear that. Or they all play sports, they're all basketball players. I'm like, hey, you got to grind, you got, so. The great thing about that is mothers are nurturers and fathers instill discipline, and fathers instill confidence. Like, and I always just say, like, if your dad tells you can do something, you believe you can do it. Well, your mom is like gonna love you, whatever. It's something about your dad telling you can do something, and it clearly shows because most women who pursue hard, engineering, advanced math and stuff in college, the consistent thing is most of them have a dad in their life who, despite the educational system, who tell women, no, you can't do that. No, you can't, you shouldn't. It's okay if you don't get an A in math. And clearly numerous studies have shown that there are bias even with female teachers and how they react to boys, say 3rd, 4th, 5th grade, and how they react to girls in regards to math and science. They'll tell a boy, now you better, you can do better than that on this math test or this math class. And they'll tell a girl, oh, that's okay, you did the best you could. And so I think that fathers are, because of the way we father, because of the way we parent, we parent differently than moms. And so I think you see that being impacted with just our parenting styles. So let me give you another example too about how, because look, man, in our community, fathering isn't really valued, even with moms. That's why moms are so quick about, my child don't need a father. I didn't have a dad, I'm fine. And so we come out of these communities where there are 3 generations of fatherlessness. It becomes the norm. I can look at my own family. My dad was super involved. I got an uncle that's super involved. But like the rest of my cousins, my dad and uncle were the father figures. And so we come out of a community where their grandma didn't have no man, mom didn't have no man. And, you grow up thinking that it's the norm, but it's not. That's not how it was intended. Like, fathers should be around. And because we feel like it's the norm, we don't value fathers and what they bring to the table.
Doc, I got a off the topic type of question, but this is one that's correlated to what you just said. How do you improve the father-son relationships with considering what you just shared?
How do I improve father-son relationships? Though, give me a scenario. Has the father not been around? Has the father, like, what is the scenario? Because I believe, depending on the scenario, if this guy's been an absent dad trying to come back in the child's life, what is the scenario? Because I think it's going to be different.
So a specific scenario would be divorce, and so there's separation, and
the father and son are buddy heads.
Yeah.
Okay. And it also depends on the age, right? So children need consistency. So even when there is a divorce or separation, and y'all know these guys too. Like, even these guys who got 3 or 4 different children by 3 or 4 different moms. Like, men tend to put family together in their minds conceptually. So it's like, this person that I'm dating or this person, that's my girl, and then we had a kid together. It's like family. And you got to remind guys that when they sever the relationship with the mother, they still had a responsibility to the child. Like sometimes you got to remind dudes that, like, I know you're not feeling her no more, but that's your kid over there, right? And so, we do know that men are, I want to say, better parent or more committed parents when they're in a romantic relationship with the mom. So anytime that relationship is severed, men have to make the commitment to still be involved in their child's life. And so sometimes children, when that's severed relationship, sometimes it's the mom's issue, sometimes it's the dad issue, but rarely is it the child's issue. Because most children, matter of fact, I don't know too many children, even when dad has been away, incarcerated, on drugs, or substance abuse, whatever, you ask most children if they want a relationship with their father, they're gonna tell you yes. So rarely is it the child's issue. Usually it's the father and mother's issue. So when men are trying to either reconnect or stay connected, particularly reconnected, you just got to start being consistent. Whether it's, that child may not want to have anything to do with you initially, but it's really around calling, contacting, being consistent. Like that phone gonna ring every Thursday. My dad coming by to see me every Saturday at 12 o'clock. He go pull up. It's that consistency. And at some point, that's what children need. That's what children thrive in, the consistency. So I hope to answer your question about the kind of father-son relationship.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Now, Doc, I got a question, and it's piggybacking off of this conversation that we're having right now. The question in regards to improving relationships between father and son. And what spoke to me as you were speaking just now, when we're talking about the severed relationship between the father and the mother, what role do you feel like the mom has to that son to help improve or continue that relationship with the dad? In prime example, I put out a video yesterday from Iyanla. That's the name, right? Iyanla, yeah. Fix My Life. And the mother of the son pretty much spoke down to him as if he was a younger father, of course, maybe early 20s. But she didn't feel like he was the man that she thought he could be, right? And he was providing for his family, doing what he's needed to do. But the ideology that she had in her head of what a father should be or what a man should be did not match what he was doing. And the question that she asked was, well, what model did the mom play in this particular situation? What role models did he have growing up to be a father? If she didn't have a positive relationship with her own father or positive and healthy relationships with the guys that she was dating, how does he know how to be a father outside of just natural instinct and willingness? How does he know? So my question is, again, what role do women play in that overall development and maintenance of that father-son or even father-daughter relationship?
Yeah, so it's ironic that you asked that question about mom's responsibility, and I was just on a call. I was just doing a study. I'm doing a study looking at how fathers can be a resource to pregnant Black moms, and doing pregnancy from conception to 2 years old. How can fathers be a resource? And so one of the questions I asked was of healthcare workers, and what I ask the moms too is, how can moms be supportive, or what can moms do to help fathers be more of a supporter and provider? And so some of the stuff I got was that part of what you just said, moms don't realize how important fathers are, even during pregnancy or whatever, that moms tend to talk down about dads, which you can blow your whistle, drop this nugget. You should never belittle your child's parent. Dad shouldn't belittle mom. Mom shouldn't belittle dads. Not in front of the child. You can talk to your girlfriend about how bad your son's father is all day, but don't talk in front of him, right? That's not cool, right? You always, and even, I tell moms to, at some point, you can even get a man a pass. Oh, your dad works so much. He was supposed to come over here, instead of he ain't no good. Because now you that young man starting to ingest that, like, my dad really don't care about me, and who wants their 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old feeling that way? At some point, when that child becomes a teenager, he gonna figure it out, but you don't need to be telling no 6, 7-year-old little boy, your dad don't care nothing about you. He ain't coming over here. He don't never show up. What good does it do? Okay. So our women have, and I know I'm gonna get feedback on this, right? Because I can't put the responsibility on our women, but our women can make it easier, particularly when that guy is trying. And that's what the women and healthcare workers I talked to today, they was like, hey, even when these guys are trying, even when they're putting their best foot forward, and a lot of them don't have models, like, I want to be a good dad, but I don't really know what to do, and when they're trying and the women still push back, it's still not enough. And not that we shouldn't hold guys to standards. I'm not saying that, but I'm like, when a guy's trying, how can we support his efforts and help educate him about what children need and how he needs to be around?
I wanted to blow the whistle several times, Doc.
I didn't want to mess
up your flow. I wanted to blow it.
Doc, you dropped some jewels again about just the fatherhood, the father-son relation, how the mother, great question, Dame, and how the mother can kind of foster that relationship, because it is an obstacle that we have, especially like you said, in our African American communities and our families. We often misconstrue the roles that we have, or just don't know, and so we build our own definition, like you said, based off just instinct and experience.
Right. And
so if we had a model, a basic foundation that we could operate from, I think we would have better, relationships, not only father-son, but also when there's a co-parent, because co-parenting is big. We talked about the divorce rate being at all-time high, but co-parenting is one of the biggest proponents of a successful child, but is one of the biggest challenges that we have.
So I have stories of co-parenting too. That is at the heart. I do some co-parenting. My wife and I do some co-parenting training and things. And so before I talk about co-parenting, I actually wrote a note about something before. So we talk about fathers and sons and how do we impact that relationship. And D, I think I might have did this at one of the trainings you were at or whatever, but another interest of mine is this whole idea of intergenerational transmission of fathering, how we learn how to father from our fathers and how we carry so much as men from our relationships with our dads, good, bad, and indifferent. The problem is most dudes don't even realize they're doing a lot of the same things their dads did. So men either operate in a deficit, they either compensate or they emulate for their own relationships with their dad. Mm-hmm. They either compensate or they emulate their relationship with their fathers. But even when they compensate, these guys who had a bad relationship with their father and they try to be super dads, it's still coming from an unhealthy place because they have never dealt with the disappointment, the anger, the hurt from their own dads. Right. They're still not in a healthy mental place because they never dealt with that, even though they try to compensate and be super dads now. And so one exercise I love to do with folks and with men and fathers is, hey, think about something your dad left you, whether it's discipline, emotional impact, whatever your dad left you. What are some things your dad left you? Get a man to write those things down and then ask him, what are these things? Which of these things that your dad left you that you want to keep for your own child? What are some of these things that you want to throw away? And then what are some things you want to add to your child? See, that right there helps men because most men have never had that conversation about my relationship with my father strongly impacts how I father. And so you help men make the connection. Now they can start thinking about, man, I hated the way my dad did X, Y, and Z. Or I really like the way my dad did this. I want to be the same for my child. And it helps us, and we often say in our community, kind of break that cycle. y'all know we got this huge cycle of fatherlessness. So this whole abandonment and things of that nature that we have, it gives us opportunity to kind of sever that.
Absolutely. Now, Doc, I tell you, I just want to blow whistles every time you're speaking right now, because you're spitting out some jewels. But talking about, you just recently mentioned the emotional impact. So I definitely want to talk about that as being therapists here as well. I want to dive into kind of like the father being able to address some of those things, that resentment, the dysfunction that he grew up in, witnessing lack of a father or a dysfunctional childhood or household where he didn't see the appropriate model, but also intermingling with that, understanding that as we evolve as people, as men as well as women in those gender roles, right? How can we kind of teach our fathers that it's okay to teach your son that it's okay to be emotional, or be able to express those emotions without being able to identify your own emotions and where you're coming from. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you just said it. It's man, this is great. It's a great conversation, because I was just on another call this time last week. Was a brother kind of said the same thing. Like, man, we got to stop raising, and I know this metrosexual, generation thing or whatever, but we gotta allow our children to see all sides of us, all sides of our human existence,
Right.
And I consider myself a fathering expert, but as a man, I still have a hard time admitting I'm wrong and saying I'm sorry, but it's something I've grown into. So I just had an incident about 3 or 4 months ago where I had to put my daughter aside, just like, hey, I'm sorry, I messed that up. I totally. And I'm glad she saw it, because now she's going to expect that in her romantic relationship, like for the guy to be like, I'm sorry, not to be so masculine and tough that I can't ever say I'm sorry. So right. I think we do have to evolve. And you guys are mental health workers. And so y'all know dudes, unless y'all sit at the barbershop, brothers ain't really talking about much, man. Sports, politics, well, and we ain't doing no deep dive emotional conversation. Need to you guys know that we as Black men are probably the least likely to seek therapeutic help, and there are a number of brothers running around here who, buddy of mine, Fathers Incorporated, Kenneth Braswell out of Atlanta, we did a documentary, it was probably about 7-8 years ago, called Spitting Anger. And Spitting Anger really is about Black men who've never dealt with the emotional toll of fatherlessness. And because the anger, and however it's manifested, it's there. People don't attribute it to fatherlessness because you're growing up in a community where there are no fathers, but all children want a relationship with their dad. They just don't know it's the fatherlessness that's causing this with so many Black men. And so, it's titled Spitting Anger. Certainly encourage the artists to go check it out, man, because it's a powerful documentary really talking about how Black men have this anger, disappointment, some of these emotional issues that's attributed to fatherlessness, but they don't even know it's where it's coming from. And until we deal with that, can we really be whole?
Doc, speaking of this, our segment is about relationships. One of the things that I want to ask you is to speak on. You spoke of the training that I sat in one time, and I remember a statistic you were talking about, a communication piece. You don't necessarily have to share on this, but around about it's talking about the average words for a female and a male and things of that nature. And it just really spoke to the different communication styles and different approaches that we have and how we operate in relationship. And it sounds like what we're talking about is, from our standpoint, the better that relationship is, the better our relationship with our kids are as well. So when we talk about relationship, speak to me and kind of regurgitate some of those things that you were speaking of as far as the difference in communication styles and how it affects us both in the short term and the long term.
Okay, so from a parenting standpoint, from a co-parenting standpoint, from a romantic relationship standpoint, when we are parents, the communication is essential. And so I'm going to hit communication on all those because, co-parenting is what we kind of hit on earlier, is super, super important. So as I tell men that your goal as a co-parent is to get access to your child. So your communication needs to be above board. I'm always appalled, man, with, me having girls and, I've been married for 20 years and, it ain't all been rose petals and Valentine's, but I told my wife, like, well, you walking, you leaving, I'm living next door. I'm living across the street because I'm gonna have access to my kids. That's a non-negotiable. And I trip off dudes who, especially daughters, like you got an 8-9-year-old daughter. Your daughter's mom is dating somebody, living with somebody, and you don't know who this dude is, just for safety reasons. You don't know who this dude is. Right. You ain't going over there and introduce yourself like, hey man, that's my little girl. I'll be over here. Just, not being intimidated, but just let him know that that's my baby girl. That's my son. I'm gonna be around. I don't care what y'all do. That's, I'm just here for the kids. I'm just appalled at dudes who don't do that. I'm like, ain't no way my kid living, or no way old girl dating somebody and he hanging out over there and I don't know who he is. Like, no, that ain't happening. Right. No, and I'm gonna be cordial because whatever they're doing, I don't care. So the relationship, the communication part has to be legit and for real. And so D, we talk about we need to be aware that we communicate differently. The story you probably I often share is, and having a house full of girls too, like sometimes women just need you to listen. And I often joke, the best thing you can say to a female when she's talking is, and what happened next? Man, they love that, man. They going off the deep end. Yeah, like,
somebody gonna take that one, Doc. Somebody gonna take that.
What happened next? You just gotta tilt in a little bit. That therapist tilt, like
right. And what happened? Right. And I try to, so we need to be, as men, we also need to be cognizant of our communication style, in that we're problem solvers. And sometimes women, our romantic relationships, our daughters particularly, like they don't want their problem solved. They just want you to hear them. And the story I often share is hypothetical, but this happens. Like, so your wife calls you, like, man, I just had a flat tire and it's raining, and now she's starting to tell you her story. She's about to start pouring her heart out, like she's late for a meeting, she had a flat tire, some bum pulled up asking if she wanted help, and she had to call her boss, and like she's going through all these things. All you heard as a dude is, I got a flat tire. And now you're like, okay, she just going on and on the phone. You ain't listening to her. You're like, okay, I can go home and get the jack, probably take that tire and run it over to the store and get it plugged or whatever. And you ain't hearing the words she's saying because you're in problem solving mode, mm-hmm. And it's just something that we need to be aware of, right? And we don't communicate nearly as much. We don't nonverbal communicate nearly as much. I often joke, that's why women are so tired at the end of the day, like head nods and responses and facial expressions. And this is all scientific that men, a lot of times we didn't got home, we didn't use our 3,000 words for the day, and women got home, they use 3,000, they got another 2,000 words they need to use before the end of the day. And we done. We already used our words. We gotta sit in here, watch the news, grab something to eat, and call it a day.
That's research proven too.
It is.
With text messages too, because those ones.
Yeah, but we need to be aware of that. We need to be aware,
right.
And like I said, it's okay to, like, okay, and what happened next? Okay, all right. And so what did she say? Just let them go, man. And that's just a great, great tool, man. I know we be tapped out. Like, I don't have no response, man. You go ahead and keep rolling now.
Right. Wow. That's funny, but I mean, it's very true. Like sometimes Women just want to be heard.
It's just that's soft gesture.
Females just want to be heard in a sense, and whether you understand what they're saying or can comprehend, sometimes that nod, and sometimes like just validating the emotional part, not even the situation, but just the emotion that's tied to that situation.
That's right.
It's the healthy part.
Yeah. Hey man, I wish I'd known that a long time ago. So now I'm a lot better, and I think, like I said, growing up in a house full of girls and like, okay, I'm not solving problems. I'm just gonna sit there and nod my head, listen, and help you get through it. Particularly my daughters, help you kind of navigate. Which is, let me drop this nugget with girls too. So for fathers who have daughters, please understand that your daughters are internalizing how you treat their mother. Right? They're internalizing that. So, you know, I often marvel at guys like, man, I don't know where she found this knucklehead, why she dating, where she found that. I'm like, dude, look in the mirror. Like, you've done this all these years. You know, I can see what you're doing so loud, I can't hear a word you're saying. So men have to be very, very careful, very, very intentional with their daughter's mother around their daughters, whether you're in a romantic relationship or not, because your daughter's just ingesting all that. And you wonder why she's in a bad relationship. You wonder why she's going through change in her romantic relationship. Probably because you sent her mom through a bunch of changes.
And we always said that you and your daughter's first love. So anything that you do, she's going to emulate that.
That's right.
As much as she may hate you, she's going to end up, like you said earlier, finding that dude that's just like dad.
That's right. That's right.
So
and we don't get it all the time. We don't understand that.
What'd you say, D?
I'm glad to say my daughter probably have a good guy then.
I know, right? Hey, if she gonna find somebody like me, you know, when she get old, she find a guy that's like me, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Now, 20-year-old Damien, maybe early 30s, I don't know. But right now, where we are right now, yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah. But 20-year-old, no. I haven't known you that long. Not just
Man, this is a good conversation. We can keep this going all night, but we gonna do that. We can't. We want to, but
we can always bring Dr. Shears back.
Oh, most definitely.
Hey man, please bring me back, man. We could do a whole series on co-parenting. We could do a whole series on fathers and daughters. We could do a whole series on fathers and sons, man. We could do a whole series on intergenerational transmission of parenting, man. I mean, I'm loving your platform. I'm loving what you guys do, man. You know, as brothers, too many times we get a knock for not having these kind of intellectual, in-depth conversations, except at the barbershop. So, man, I just applaud you guys for the work you're doing, man. This is inspirational for me to know that young guys are coming through, really talk about real issues, man, to save our families, man. I often say we can save our families one father at a time. One father at a time, we can save our families.
I love it. I love it.
Doc, we definitely appreciate you coming and spending time. And like you said, you know, just using our platform to, like you said, save our families and to save the community. You start with your own family first. And then to even go beyond that, you got to start with the person that's looking in the mirror, looking back at you. So, you know, a lot of things that you shared not only spoke to myself and my co-host, but I know I'm just waiting for all these comments to come through about what we've talked about and what you've shared. I mean, it's just blowing up, and I think it's because of the candidness and the transparency that you share with us, and how open you were, and even starting with your own personal story of how you got started. I mean, it just shows the importance of what we're talking about, and I appreciate you joining our platform and giving us validity. You know, bringing value to our platform.
Absolutely.
Hey, I appreciate the invite, man. Again, I applaud your work because it is needed and it's warranted. So I applaud what you guys are doing, man, wholeheartedly, for real.
Well, thank you, Doc. We definitely, again, appreciate your time. You know, we know you're a busy man, but definitely look out for that phone call and that email, because we definitely going to bring you back on here and drop some more jewels and have these conversations.
We'd love to. Take
Doc,
care, guys.
How can the people watching connect with you, follow you? You know, just staying updated with what you're doing.
My website is DADSKNOW, DADSKNOW, DADSKNOW. I'm on Twitter at DADSKNOW. Feel free to reach out to my email, jeffrey.shears@outlook.com, JEFFREY.shears, like cutting shears @outlook.com.
Okay. So we definitely gonna make sure we notify you when we dropping this episode, because we know, you know, people are gonna be on fire about this anytime we're talking about relationships and we're talking about fathers. You know, we definitely want to have a great turnout and great response, and I'm sure that we will have that.
Absolutely. Appreciate you.
All right, thank you guys. Appreciate you,
All
man.
right, dog. Have a good evening, man. Be safe. Happy holidays. All right.
Oh yeah. Another one down.
My man. Doc was dropping some, man. Hey, we could have went probably about 2-3 hours.
I could have went like a marathon. We could do a whole series.
For real.
I don't even remember that long term that he said.
Yeah, I don't know, but it sounded good.
Like I want to sit there and listen to it. Yeah.
That sounds like a train I need to attend right
I
there.
need to be in now.
Transgenerational.
Don't try.
That's all I remember.
Yeah. So
I'm just keeping it real. That's all I remember.
But
I know it was a jewel.
It was a jewel.
And I'm pretty sure y'all gonna rewind it after y'all listen to it and watch this. Y'all gonna rewind it just to figure that out.
Hey, listen. Go and follow us on Instagram, Facebook,
YouTube,
Twitter, every
podcast platform, Spotify,
Apple Podcast,
Google Podcasts.
What else you want?
We here. We blowing whistles. Y'all see
we ain't
us.
going nowhere. If that's what you call. We ain't going nowhere. BTW here. You see it. Off season. Session 3.
Hey man.
Session 4 coming.
Hey. What we need to bring out in relationships? We need to talk about like side chicks.
Tell us what you want. How about that? Audience, tell us what you want.
I want to talk about side chicks.
Side chicks.
Yeah. I want to talk about that. You know, I like to cause controversy, y'all. Y'all already
about to
know.
cause more than controversy. You about to cause
Hey,
a whole
if
lot.
I'm not having no good Valentine's Day, ain't nobody having no good Valentine's. I'm messing, y'all. I'm
at the Waffle House for New Year's.
Hey man, y'all know how we do here on BTW, man. We don't do no long closing and all that stuff. All we do is just walk off and it be that. So we're gonna holler at y'all. Happy holidays, all that good stuff.